Welcome, everyone. We're thrilled to be here with you live on LinkedIn today. My name is Stephanie Dorworth, the owner and CEO of ALTIUS Healthcare Consulting Group, and I'm joined by...
Hello, everyone. I am Randy Lynn Lucas. I am the Chief Operating Officer here at ALTIUS.
And for those of you who are not familiar with us, ALTIUS focuses on improving the financial and operational performance of healthcare organizations through strategies such as productivity, learning, leadership management, and other components. And we're really excited to be here with you today to discuss the origin of our virtual training academy, as well as all of our leadership development programs, but focusing on where it came from, how it originated, what it is, and what benefit it can provide to you and your organizations. So we're going to kick it off by just talking about why we created it and what led to the development of it. And we're going to set the stage for you and consider, January, February of 2020. Does anyone remember that period of time? I'm sure that you all do. If you can relate to that period of time, just drop a yes in the chat. And I'll let Randy Lynn share a little bit about the origin. Then we'll kick it off and get started and share the value and passion that we have behind this product.
Well, when we think about the origin of the Virtual Training Academy, it actually wasn't virtual at all. We originally designed an in-person program that would be 1 to 2 days of really focused retreat-like material with a curriculum around leadership development and all of the things that go into being a leader in the healthcare industry. So we really weren't virtual at all when we started. We thought we're going to take this live. We're going to go in person with our clients, with new clients, and sit down with the department level managers, the department level directors, and really help them become better leaders within their space.
We focus a lot on performance improvement. And what we were hearing from our clients at the time is that there was really a need for more in-person, detailed-oriented learning sessions. And in fact, we had a lot of calls from clients asking, hey, do you do retreats? We'd really love to have an intensive productivity session. Are you available for sessions? Can you provide any content? And we didn't have anything available in that format. So we spent months developing an in-person retreat with sessions that could really be an hour, they could be a half hour, multiple days. And we had in-person activities, we had curriculum developed, and then all of a sudden, just as we were getting ready to market it, everything shut down.
Yep, there we were faced with COVID, and we weren't really sure what this was going to look like. What was the industry going to look like on the other side? When was the other side of the pandemic? And how are we going to take all of this great material, what we knew these leaders needed to be successful, to be elevated within their positions, what were we going to do with it? And how are we going to pivot? And that took some time because we know the industry was not ready throughout the pandemic for leadership development and retreats and curriculum. And so that really started to get us thinking in a different way. And how could we, on the other side of the pandemic, bring this curriculum to the leaders? And one thing that COVID showed us as an industry, as a consulting firm, is that we can do a lot virtually. We can get a lot done through the virtual platforms. And that was that aha moment where we took that curriculum and said, let's go virtual with it. And then the Virtual Training Academy started to develop, and here we are today.
What we know is that the issues that exist in healthcare currently, issues with retention of employees, issues that we have with quality of care, providing the highest possible quality that we possibly can, employee engagement, turnover, all of these components existed then and they still exist today. And so we really thought that the virtual environment is a great way for us to really address these concerns at that period of time. And the micro-learning that we built into the VTA really provides a platform to give employees and managers and leaders bite-sized pieces of information that they can deploy immediately and solve all of those issues and problems that really are part of the healthcare environment always. Whether it's during the pandemic and COVID, or it's in the environment now, micro-learning, leadership engagement, leadership development, employee engagement are always going to be important components of any healthcare organization.
Absolutely. And one of the things that we saw with the pandemic was turnover in leadership. So here we are taking all of these things that were there before, they're there now, and they're going to be there in the future that impact being a leader, but we have new leaders. So we had those long tenured leaders that either left the industry or retired. They didn't want to stay in their positions, and we have newly promoted leaders. And sometimes those leaders weren't even expecting that promotion. It just kind of was something that happened. There wasn't necessarily succession planning for it, or they weren't really prepared to be promoted at that time. But because of the environment that they were in, here they are, newly promoted. And as we all know, it's a little bit of a congratulations and a good luck. And here's the industry, and here's your department that you're now leading.
Yeah, it really is disheartening when you look at the focus that healthcare in general provides on leadership development, from the standpoint that there are a lot of research articles that share that only about 30% of newly promoted leaders in healthcare are actually provided with any type of leadership development. As Randy Lynn said, it's congratulations and good luck, and thrown out to the unit or to the environment. And there might be a mentorship program, there may be something available, but for the most part, only 30%, 3 out of every 10 are receiving any type of leadership development. So we created the VTA as a way to bridge that gap, not only with newly promoted leaders, but leaders with tenure as well. And one of the goals of it is to really become that catalyst for organizational excellence. Everyone wants to become better. Everyone has a mission to be the best organization they possibly can be. And leadership development and providing a framework for that is important. And the VTA does just that.
Absolutely. And I think something that makes it unique in the industry that has an added value, is that it's industry specific. We're really talking about how to develop healthcare leaders that are working within the hospital environment, within the clinic environment. They are dealing with different challenges than other industries. So it's a really specific healthcare focused platform of education specifically for those leaders.
And when you think about, a platform of education specific for healthcare leaders, what should it do and what's the benefit of it? At the end of it, if your leaders were going to go through that platform, or what do our clients experience? At the end, their leaders have more confidence. They're more engaged. They're more involved in the process. They're making decisions. They're looking at data and basing their decisions on that data and critically thinking. And all of the modules, whether it's productivity, how do you build a budget, how do you improve your performance, how do you improve your retention rate, all of the modules build upon one another and really are built with that infusion of confidence at the core to really take leaders from their current state and elevate them to become the CEOs and CFOs of their individual cost centers, because who doesn't want that at their hospital?
Absolutely. And when we started to build the curriculum back in that retreat mindset, we were really trying to get into the thought process, the mindset of those leaders. What do they need to know? Like you said, being that CEO, being the CFO of their department, what terminology do they need to understand, to be able to have the conversations with finance? What do they need to know to influence change within their departments? And when we started, we had a lot of material and we were ready to go, right, with those 3 certificate tracks. So thinking about how the VTA is organized, right, for those that aren't familiar with our VTA, when we think about how it's organized, we have specific certificate tracks that we put the leaders on. And you were mentioning some of those areas, those segments, like productivity and waste management and eliminating waste, change management, and leadership development. And so our first 3 certificates were immediate, right? Because we had it all from the retreat mindset. So we went straight to the certificates with performance improvement as our first, leadership development as our second. So here we're in that mindset of CEO and CFO, and then resource optimization. So we're thinking culture, succession planning, and retention. And those 3 certificates was how we launched the VTA. And so from there, we then started to think about how do we expand.
Absolutely. And one of the components that was always on our mind is how can we best support leaders through anything that they might be faced with on a day-to-day basis, on a month-to-month basis, on a year-to-year basis, and providing those micro bursts of learning that are easy to access. And we know that there are a lot of multi-day retreats in healthcare. We know that a lot of times, leaders go to ACHE, they go to HFMA. The organizations may even have half-day retreats, once a year, or strategic planning components. But what's missing is that continuous learning, that cycle of continuous growth that's always providing microbursts of learning so that we can retain it and continue to grow. And when we thought about that, that was really at the core of what we built it to do. But we also wanted to make sure that we were focused on ways that we could help train the trainers within healthcare organizations, but make everyone an expert on the topics. And many nurse managers today have issues with providing their budget. They may know how many, staff members they need based off their nurse to patient ratios, but how do they create a budget? They might understand their productivity target, but what is productivity? They may understand, what the quality metrics are that they're reporting on, but how do they as a leader actually improve quality? So the micro training sessions were built with this in mind, but also to make sure that we're enabling change and to make the organization better at the outset.
Yes, absolutely. When we can give this level of information in those micro learning segments, we are empowering those leaders to make decisions more confidently. We're allowing them to speak at a different level with their leaders, with the executives, and really hold their own. We're giving them the confidence to speak to their team and deliver information and communicate to them differently. We're really helping them with those day-to-day operations by giving them access to all of this information.
And at the end of the day too, a lot of this deals with the culture of the organization and really setting that culture of continuous growth. And, some of the, quotes that are really popular quotes, talking about the fact that organizations will not rise to the aspirations of the organization. They're going to settle to the level of leadership, or settle to the actual level of the knowledge and skill set that the leaders have, or settle for what they actually allow to exist. And, these little bursts really help to prove that, you can have cultural growth. You can grow organizations and really focus on those bite-sized pieces of information to really make sure that the hospital continues that evolution of change.
Absolutely. And that's why when we think about that evolution of change, that continuous focus on performance improvement, operational improvement, we thought, where do we go next? So we have our 3 tracks: performance improvement, leadership development, and resource optimization. So where do we go? Strategic thinking. Now in strategic thinking, this is our newest certificate track that's been launched. We have strategic planning, managing momentum. So we get things started. And how often do we start a project? How often does an organization start an initiative? And then it kind of loses its flow. It kind of loses its momentum. So how do we manage momentum? These are some of the new segments that are out there within the strategic thinking certificate. But then we didn't want to stop there, because we know that there's so much more to what impacts these leaders. So we had to think, now where? Where do we go with the Virtual Training Academy? And so there's 2 more certificate tracks that we're working on, and that's the quality and the leader. So when you think quality and the leader, we're not talking about our quality scores. We're talking about quality within that leadership. And how are you a quality leader? And that's going to talk about employee engagement, patient experience. So when we're doing all of these things and we're strong in our leadership, we're going to have better employee engagement. We're going to have better patient experience. How do you lead through adversity? That's probably one of the biggest challenges that our leaders are facing, even if it's a bad attitude for that day. Yeah. How do you continue to lead through that? And then our final certificate track that we're working on is the cost of care. And this is probably one of those areas that a lot of managers within organizations struggle with. How do we understand our patient population, our market, our payer mix? What is value-based care? All of those things that go into decisions that organizations are making around mergers, acquisitions, ACOs, things like that. And that's probably a far reach for some of our department leaders, especially in some organizations that are smaller, rural organizations that maybe aren't focused on those types of conversations and that information. So that's all now going to be out there in those micro bursts of learning, those segments for the leaders to really evolve and grow in their knowledge base.
So many great topics and, great areas of concentration. I'd be curious to hear from you and the audience. What are areas of leadership development, healthcare, or areas that you feel that you need? What else could we do within the VTA to provide you with more resources? What would you be looking for your organization? And, Randy Lynn touched upon managing momentum and maintaining momentum, the big mo. And momentum is such an important thing in any organization. And it usually starts with making the right decision or the next best decision, and then continuing to go from that. And if you need to pivot, pivoting. But what we find so often in healthcare is that leaders oftentimes end up not making any decision at all. And that happens for a lot of reasons. And within healthcare, we have a very political, structure. There are a lot of decision makers involved in any process. And what one of the items of the VTA does is help leaders to actually unleash their creativity and become better decision makers and think through those results. And in all of the segments that are coming up, like the strategic thinking, the cost of care, the quality of leaders, those all help to make leaders better decision makers, and more importantly, to make decisions that can build momentum. Because when you get the momentum moving, that's where the real change starts to help and starts to transform organizations and really drive you to the next level of excellence.
Absolutely. And I think that through this process, through the Virtual Training Academy and completing the certificates, the manager on the other side is going to have so much more ownership over their department, their team, their vision, their operations. And I think that sometimes we get stuck in the, like you said, who's the decision maker? Where do we go to? How do we have to ask for permission? And all of that may be true, but there are things that we can take ownership of within our department, and to have the confidence to make some difficult decisions on the fly, to make those decisions when there's pressure on you to do so. And I think when we're in the clinical mindset, we can do really, really well to make some of those really fast decisions because we know and we're confident in what's the best thing to do for the patient. It's when we get to the other side of it, the operations, the finances, the strategic thinking around things, that we as leaders at the department level may not have the same confidence that we do in our skill, in our trade.
And another component that I think is important to notice is that when you're a new leader or you're in a situation, sometimes you don't know the information, knowledge of skills that you're going to need in that particular moment. Mm-hmm. And a great thing about microbursts of information or the Virtual Training Academy, even if I'm currently not pursuing a certificate, or even maybe I'm working on the performance improvement certificate, but in my day-to-day, I notice I really need to focus on retention right now. I can easily go into a microburst environment, easily go into a situation, pull up the retention segments and get coached on what do I need to do to help to retain my employees? How do I get employee engagement? How do I focus on this? And as the leader or manager, finding that information when I need it in an easy to bite-sized and knowledge bite of 3 to 5 minutes makes it extremely important, because now I can listen to that, I can get coached in real time, and I can go back out and actually make changes that influence the outcomes of my department.
Absolutely. It's a menu of a wide menu of options, right? So you can look at your day, you can look at what's coming up in your calendar, and you can prepare with some of those segments that are out there on the Virtual Training Academy. Again, it doesn't have to be necessarily the track that you're on. You can explore and you can use the information that's out there to help you for a situation, help you prepare for a conversation. If going into budget conversations, going into a change management type of a conversation where we know we have to influence change, and or maybe there's a new initiative within your organization and you're talking about how are we going to improve our operations. So now we're going to look at duplicate efforts, we're going to look at reducing waste, we're going to look at identifying areas for improvement, and the VTA has segments on all of that.
Yes, absolutely. And this makes it extremely easy to use and helps us to move forward. And as the comment is made here, there's really the discussions informative for leadership development. And one of the things we're focusing on with this is it's not just about building the skills. It's really about building confidence. It's about building that clarity, and it's about equipping users with that information to advance moving forward. One of the most, I think, important things or fun facts is we had an organization that was really looking for understanding how could they develop as an organization, because as we said earlier, 30 to 35% of turnovers are happening within any organization, which means every hospital and healthcare organization right now is losing 1 out of every 3 leaders every single year. And what's going to retain them? Well, we know that organizations have an 85% better rate of retention whenever they engage employees. We know that there's a 2.5 chance of them keeping employees whenever they have leadership development components, but it's not happening enough in healthcare. Well, one of our clients realized that was something that they really had to do because they had high turnover in their leadership ranks. So they went on a 12-month journey and created segments on their own internally that they did, but then extended that with the VTA. And it helped them to really round out that employee engagement, focus on scenarios that they needed to expand upon internally, and completely change the makeup of the organization culturally.
Absolutely. So we do have a question here that we could go ahead and answer. With the healthcare is a service industry, which is getting influenced by a lot of external factors. In such a scenario, how can we improve patient experience?
So
it's a good question.
It's a great question.
I'll start. I'll lead off with, I think that when you have a leader that is confident in their decision making, that is given the tools and the resources that they need to do their job, that trickles down to their team. Their team then knows what they're supposed to be doing, when they're supposed to be doing it. They know they can go to that leader. And that all impacts the patient experience. The patient is going to feel and sense that this is a well-oiled machine. They are going to feel safe. They are going to know that it is a department, a unit, a procedural area, whatever it might be, that is confident in what they're doing and that they have just a good culture within their environment.
So I'm going to build off of that. When we're talking about improving patient experience, one of our sayings that we have here is productivity produces positive results, but you can't have positive results with a negative attitude. And what's the tie-in? Well, a lot of times if your staff are walking around the units with a negative attitude, they're disengaged, they're frustrated, they're burnt out for whatever reason, that's going to evolve into poor patient experience, poor patient satisfaction. And how do you improve that? Well, you improve it through leadership development, you improve it through engaged leaders, and you improve by providing them with content and tools that help them to elevate their skill set on a day-to-day basis. They need to manage from the front. Leaders need to manage from being involved. Leaders manage from being equipped with those skills and knowledge and mindset to actually transform their engagement with their employees. And when employees are positive, when they're actually talking to the patients, when they're involved, they care about the outcomes, they care about the quality, you're going to naturally have a positive patient experience.
Absolutely. And you hit on something that I think is so important, is managing within your department. Come out from behind your desk, be out there, round on your patients on your unit, round on the patients that are in the waiting room waiting for their procedure, be present and set that example for your team, for your staff members, so that they are imitating and doing what you're doing, and they see how you're leading and you're there supporting them. So if they need help with a high churn on the unit, it's an admission discharge time, be there next to them, helping them. And again, that's felt. That's something that is palpable across your unit or your department. The patients are going to feel it. The family is going to feel it. And then most importantly, your team is going to feel it.
And so how does this, wrap back around to the VTA and the Virtual Training Academy? Well, there are segments within there that provide the knowledge and information to the leaders on how to actually do those things. We talk about rounding on the patient units. We talk about leading from the front. We train them and teach them how to actually execute on those methodologies within their departments, and then use that as a catalyst for change so that you can transform. And again, microbursts of information, 3 to 5 minutes, some of them are even less than that, but they have valuable skills and information that they can then take back to foster that environment of positivity, to foster the environment where patient experience grows, to foster an environment where quality of care increases, to improve operations, to reduce the length of stay. And all those nuggets of information are in the bite-sized segments within the Virtual Training Academy.
Absolutely. And it all goes back to ownership, right? It goes back to that ownership of your department, of your processes, and the having that confidence. And it's all there. The tools, the resources are all there within the Virtual Training Academy for those leaders to be elevated in their mindset, in their confidence, in their skills, so that they can really lead their unit, their department as best they can.
So as you can see, we are extremely passionate and excited about the Virtual Training Academy. One of the comments, that was in here is that it's long overdue, and it absolutely is. Leadership development is so important regardless of what industry you're in, but it's even more important when you're in an industry such as healthcare. because we're touching patients' lives, we're touching quality, we're having such a profound impact on a day-to-day basis, and our staff members are making really heavy and difficult decisions. And when you're involved in situations with heavy and difficult decisions, your leaders need to be even more equipped to in those situations.
Absolutely. One thing that we always say here when we're doing our productivity engagements, the one thing we always say is it's about having the right person in the right place with the right tools, performing the right task for the right outcome. But it's bigger than that, right? It's about the right communication, the right culture, the right leadership in place. So it's all about making it right. And we can do that with using the Virtual Training Academy to support our leaders.
Yes, and what sets us apart from other components really is the fact that we're providing certificates in performance improvement, leadership development, resource optimization, strategic thinking. In those quick nuggets of information, we're tying it back and linking it to the day-to-day operations of the managers, and we're bringing it to them from the viewpoint of new leaders all the way to extremely trained executives. And it bridges the gap from everything. What sets us apart is really the content and the fact that it's really helping with those performance improvement and financial improvement goals.
And everything is rooted in that foundation of education and supporting the leaders, and being industry specific. So we don't get lost in the weeds of, is this going to make sense to me? Is this the right platform for me and my role and what I deal with on a day-to-day basis? We established it so that it is, in fact, for healthcare, the healthcare industry.
And while we're answering questions, whether you're watching this live or you're watching the replay, drop VTA in the comments if you're interested in learning more about the ALTIUS Virtual Training Academy, or if anything at all today caught your attention, even if you're interested in leadership journeys and the retreats that we still have available now that we have the Virtual Training Academy. And I think we had one more question that
I think we answered it.
All right. I think we have answered everything. So do we have any final comments, Rainey Lynn, to wrap up before we conclude, or is there anything else you want to share?
I think I will just share that there has been so much team effort and research and time put into our Virtual Training Academy, because we believe in our leaders in the healthcare industry and we want them to succeed, because when they succeed, our hospitals succeed and they are able to remain open and have that access to care, especially in rural environments. So this is really about a passion to the industry at large, and really that goal to support our leaders so that they're supporting their organizations, which are ultimately supporting their patients.
Absolutely. And I'll add to the fact that one of the things that we value at ALTIUS is continuing education and continuous learning. And the VTA really provides that platform to our clients and to the industry. And one of the components that you'll notice within the VTA is we study, Clint Studer and John Maxwell and Stephen Covey and all of the other leaders that, really have been within the industry. And you'll find their influences within the content to really help elevate the industry overall. So we take great pride in being able to build upon some of those philosophies and methodologies and then infuse them into the day-to-day operations, into the budget planning, into the productivity thinking, into the performance improvement. And then all of that wraps together nicely to really support the organizations.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you all for joining us today. It's been a pleasure to share more information about our Virtual Training Academy with you and to share benefits of microlearning and how it might benefit your healthcare organization. Would love for you to reach out to us and follow us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram, follow us on LinkedIn.
I think we have one more quick question before we wrap. Great closing, but I'm going to answer that question. Yeah. Is it possible to demo the VTA? Yes, absolutely. We can connect and demo the VTA. We even allow for kind of a demo login, if you will, outside of just us demoing it for you. So you get to do a little bit of hands-on within the VTA itself. So absolutely, reach out for a demo.
And we would highly encourage that. Again, actually seeing the platform and experiencing, I think, makes the biggest difference.
Absolutely.
So as I was saying, be sure to follow us on LinkedIn, Facebook, and all other accounts. And again, we really appreciate you joining us today. If you're interested in a demo, drop VTA in the comments and we'll be sure to follow up.
Thank you.
Thank you.